Imagine one day while heading to school, you end up finding a paint book titled The Dragon Plate Skirt Note. You pick it up and later realize if you write anyone's name on it, you'll be able to do anything you want to them, including attacking what's behind the dragon's skirt. Unfortunately, there's a catch to this book. It will only work and activate if you get a glimpse of your target's dragon undies, then write their name down afterwards, allowing you to fully unlock the powers of the book. So the question is, what will you guys do if you stumbled upon this power? Well, let me tell you what this guy would do, because this boy is the ultimate supreme sussy baka in all of anime. This dude is like the reincarnation of Light Yagami, however, he looks more like L, and let's just say he's going to speedrun transforming from L to W real quick. Anyways, this boy's name is Yuk, and he's never experienced action before in his life, and the closest action he's experienced is playing Street Fighter. So he's a pretty lonely and frustrated guy, but one day, he finally gained a friend from the opposite gender since he keeps passing by this one girl near his house at night. She loves spending time at the swings, so one day while bored, she called him over to talk, and ever since then, they've been good friends. Regardless, things are about to change quickly as Yuk is able to get a glimpse at her precious dragon skirt after falling from her swinging way too high. And instead of helping her get back up on her feet, he freezes and stares as he knows his time has finally come to unleash his own dragon sword to vanquish his first ever dragon. But then he hesitates, since he knows he could write her name down in the Living Wild book. But what if the book is just a prank, bro? As he continues staring like a hawk, his heart starts to beat rapidly as he doesn't know what he should do. Eventually, he starts shaking after realizing he only has 30 minutes to write her name down, so he tells his only friend that he has an essay due in 30 minutes. As such, like a true bro, she asks for her drink back as she urges him to go finish his essay instead of wasting time with her. He then vanishes with the wind when the girl named Yura asks him if he wants to drink some more with her. But he apologizes, saying he just has to do something real quick and he will be back. Our boy then runs home quickly, almost running as fast as I do, and I really need to go to the bathroom. Upon arriving at his house, he does an impressive leap to jump his flight of stairs and barges straight into his room, only to stare at the legendary book before him. He then picks up the book and starts feeling some sense of embarrassment, as he can't believe he's actually going to try out if this crazy book actually works. Nevertheless, he whips the book open with such confidence and pen ready to go, so he takes a deep breath and starts thinking of his friend. And so he pauses for a moment, but we all know Yuk has already gone past the point of no return due to him already blushing with no one nearby. So like a true beta male, he scribbles her name inside the book and proceeds to write down exactly what he wants to happen to her. After writing down that he wants to deploy his siege battering ram to attack the walls of Yura directly at the nearby playground, he gets up and slams his desk as he tries to convince himself that this is all totally okay since she's a girl. Shortly after, he leaves his house with no dignity as he tries to convince himself that he is no loser that would attempt to use otherworldly powers to help him win girls over. Suddenly, while heading back out to the playground to meet up with Yura again, he notices some old geezer aggressively posturing himself in front of a random woman. Of course, instead of helping the poor woman out, he decides to activate his sneak level from Skyrim, as our boy is just a soy boy. We then discover that the woman is actually not just any random woman, but she's actually Ummi, the neighborhood goddess that is super kind and helpful to everyone. Yuk then eavesdrop on them, learning the fact that she actually has a husband, yet this weirdo named Jonghoon is acting like some kind of aggressive beta orbiter. As our boy continues to watch in darkness, it's further revealed that Yumi is literally Dr. Disrespect, as she two-timed her husband with ugly Jonghoon, although she claims it was all a mistake. Nonetheless, the turntables turn even more with Jonghoon continuing to do a display not allowed to be shown, so let's just say he's a mega sussy baka. But since Yuk has a small crush on the neighborhood goddess, he musters up the courage to defend her, so he ends up going back inside his house. After reaching his front door, he opens it and then slams it closed super loudly so Jonghoon would hear someone's about to come. He then continues down another flight of stairs by stomping as loud as he could, just to make sure he can alert Jonghoon that a Chad is about to appear. In the end, it actually works, as Yuk is able to find Ummi all alone without the man pestering her again. The two then exchange some formalities, but it's unfortunate that Yumi looks a little bit flustered after her encounter with Jonghoon. Regardless, Yuk was able to perfectly execute his plan, although I did expect him to bring out a baseball bat instead, but I guess using his big brain works as well. With his duty now accomplished, he hurries back to the playground, busy wondering to himself if the dragon plate skirt note will really work. Upon getting close to the destined playground, Yura seems to look like she's getting rocked by an earthquake, with a magnitude of 69, as you can see her tremble from miles away. However, as he steps onto the playground itself, Yuk is unable to locate Yura, causing him to feel some regret after running all the way to his house and back hoping he could actually score. He then smacks his head and begins to laugh at himself for actually thinking that some random book he found would give him the power to become a Chad without being a real Chad himself. And so he heads home feeling defeated, although he does attempt to hype himself back up by claiming that he at least got some exercise out of the entire ordeal. Meanwhile, it's revealed that Yura is actually busy walking around the block, presumably back home, due to her feeling some super weird sensation she could not control while she was on the playground. As such, she had to leave the area and helped her get back to feeling like her normal self. But she feels embarrassed about the whole thing as she can't believe her mind was overrun by the thought of Yowuk. On the other hand, Yowuk finds himself still feeling dejected as he truly hoped the book was real, so he flops down on his bed and proceeds to go over the rules of the book. His mouth then opens upon discovering the 5th rule of the book, containing the fact that the effect of the book will wear off if he does not find his target in exactly 10 minutes. And so, our boy is jolted back to his feet as he can't believe he missed out on some fine print, realizing that he missed out on 10 minutes as he was distracted by Ummi and Jonghoon before he got to the playground. With the advent of the important caveat he missed out on, our boy decides he needs to try it out again while strictly following all the rules to make sure this book actually does not work. He's actually that down bad like Jonghoon, so he decides it's time for round 2, baby. And so this menace catches me off guard as well, due to him deciding he's going to go downtown to look for the most beautiful girls around. Now his plan is literally legendary as it's all centered around him closely following behind, praying to the wind that a lucky gust of wind will come his way and lift up the dragon's skirts. So take notes guys, as this dude literally contains the best genius I have ever encountered in my life, so long may he be successful. Anyways, this menace did not realize it wasn't even a windy day to begin with, so in the end he spent his entire day failing at his mission, hoping that some kind of wind would come out of nowhere. So I guess there's no such thing as a weather application or weatherman in this world, or maybe our boy is just too focused on thinking outside the box. Regardless, with our boy wasting his entire day, he decides to head home, but then he gets graced by a 10 out of 10 appearing out of nowhere going up a flight of stairs. It was at this moment he clenched the hardest, begging as loud as he can in his head, just for the gods to give him just one chance to take advantage of. Unfortunately, the girl was well versed in the art of protecting the dragon undies when walking upstairs, as she blocks the view with her own hand instinctively. And then it happens again and over, so our boy begins to lose his mind, unable to believe that girls are very well trained at such a thing. Nonetheless, as Yowuk continues his journey back home to being a lonely boy, he becomes self-aware and realizes that he's turned into the man he despises the most, the legendary pervy sage. Upon arriving back home at the compound he lives in, he tells himself that it's maybe time for him to stop cosplaying as his most hated shinobi. However, Ummi comes out of nowhere to greet him and calls for his name while holding some groceries. He then opens the door for her like a true gentleman and even allows her to go first, but let's just say our boy knows exactly what he is doing. As he shadows her from behind like a ninja, he uses some math he learns from school to triangulate the perfect spot for him to stand at to see if he can formulate some dragon undies. In the end, his calculations were correct, allowing him to witness some greatness as it was time for the boy to actually win at life for the first time. And so he quickly hurries by Ummi to say goodbye, telling her to have a great day, but excuses himself, claiming he needs to do an essay real quick. With his heart thumping and beating faster than ever, he swiftly drops his backpack and whips out the pink book of destiny. After placing the book and opening it on his desk, he readies his hand to write down Miss Ummi on it, but he freezes and stalls. He then starts trembling as inner conflict rises up, due to his hand trying to write down her name, but his brain is trying to stop it from moving. In the end, his body overcomes his brain, so he ends up writing down a paragraph describing exactly what he wants to do. Upon finishing, he instantly stands back up and reassures himself that he's only doing this to make sure the notebook actually works. Unfortunately, it's too late for Jawuk to return back to his soy boy self, as his mind already drifted past the point of no return while accidentally being on Kick.com. After finally going through with it, he slaps on some skinny jeans as the Jawuk bulge of the Atlantic will put the size of the Titanic to shame. Mere seconds after, Miss Yumi shows up at his door looking a little bit like a sussy beka prepped to enter the sussy time chamber with Jawuk as she asks him if he has some time to spare for her. Of course, our boy is all ears as this scenario is playing out exactly like the fan fiction he posts on Reddit all the time. He then quickly lets Ummi in and shows her to his couch, so he starts mumbling about how he's been a doctor, engineer, and astronaut at the age of 18 and welcomes her to his casting call club. But then the unexpected happens as Yumi starts bringing up how often she used to visit when his mother was still home, as it turns out she's literally twice over his age. It's okay though, as Asian don't raisin and black don't crack, so she basically looks exactly like a young beautiful goddess to Jawuk. Regardless, our boy starts getting flustered while making some small talk with his brand new target, as his brain is going through teenage overload. Anyways, it's revealed that Jae-wook is by himself now in his own apartment, and he's able to afford it because his family is rich after Jeff Bezos gave his dad a promotion. After revealing that information to Yumi, I tell our boy to cut to the chase, so he drops the nuclear bomb by asking what she's doing here and what exactly are her intentions. Instantly, he gasps as his hopes and dreams get shattered, as she's actually here wanting to know if he saw her last night with the weirdo named Jong-hoon. With his shocked reaction, she swiftly asks him to please be honest with her as she doesn't want anyone to know she's exactly like Jaden Smith's mom. As such, he succumbs to the pressure of having a girl in front of him, so he spills the beans and confesses that he saw literally everything, causing the two to look quite defeated. Eventually, with thunderous silence and awkwardness between the two, Yumi is forced to explain that Jong-hoon used to live in their basement, so she helped out with food delivery from time to time. Then one day, since he's Korean, Yumi discovered that the poor lonely boy was going to join the army soon to do his service, so she asked if he needed anything before he had to head off, as she felt bad for him. She felt even worse when he started crying, so she told him that she would do anything to make him feel better. As such, she took advantage of her kind heart by asking if she could let him experience what's it like to be on top of her driving clouds, to which she agreed to. Unfortunately, things took a very suspect turn to which she could not stop, as Jong-hoon was too strong, so the rest was history. Luckily for Yumi, the dude struggled to figure out how a hot dog works, since he's never combined a hot dog before with a real-life hot dog bun, so nothing happened more than Jong-hoon feeling like absolute dirt water. After retelling her traumatic story, she proceeds to hold his hand and begs Jae-wook with all her might to keep the entire ordeal a secret between them two, as she doesn't want her husband to find out. In an instant, Jae-wook agrees, as it turns out she offered to cook him a free meal whenever he wants, and Yumi also claimed that she would rejoin the server he's on for Roblox Fruits. With her sweetening the deal by becoming his e-girl on Roblox, Yumi promptly leaves the room, but Jae-wook is still confused, as he thought he still had a chance to score on her basket. Luckily for our boy, he regains some hope after he discovers that Yumi went to check out his kitchen, as she offered to cook for him since Jae-wook always dines out. However, after making sure he had what she needed to cook for him, she merely just leaves and proceeds to thank Jae-wook profusely for being her accomplice, leaving our boy saddened that he didn't become a jackhammer specialist. As such, he instantly sits down and starts rummaging through all the pages of the book, wondering what the heck happened, as he followed the rules of looking underneath dragon armor. Light Yagami then facepalms, as it turns out his prodigy, Rizzy Yuk, did not read every rule in the book, so it's revealed that his chance of rice cake smashing depends on how much he sees under the dragon armor. The more he sees, the higher probability and chance that his book will work with full effect, so he starts yelling in disbelief, wondering why there's so many rules he has to follow. Now that he failed his mission after targeting not only his next-door neighbor, but also his childhood friend, he decides to blow off some steam at the usual bench he sits at nearby his house. Whilst feeling all down on himself, some girl passes by, as it's a scenic route due to the river right beside the trail. Jae-wook then looks up and notices that the girl had to tie her shoes, so he's gotten some prime opportunities to strike like a cobra, but he decided he wanted some primetime donaire instead. Unfortunately, his day could not get any worse, as the girl instantly turns after finishing up tying her shoes, so he gets caught staring at some yummy rice cakes. So then she starts confronting him for being exactly like a Jong-hoon, but he deserves it, as this dude's IQ level is lower than Iron's game sense. Nevertheless, Jae-wook discovers that she's known all this time that he's being a sussy every time she passes by this trail, but Jae-wook tries to reason within his head that she's only super extra today, since it could be that time of the month for her. However, he suddenly becomes Rizmaster 9000 after apologizing to her, as our boy tries to make an excuse by claiming that she's too pretty, so it helped with his stress to stare. And somehow it works, as she stops being all mean to him, and she ends up even making some small talk by asking our boy what exactly is he currently studying at school. With him out of danger, he unfortunately makes a fatal mistake, allowing his beta self to take over, so he randomly runs off mid-conversation back to his house. The girl then says, "That's some super weeb reaction if I've ever seen one." Fast forward to the evening, our boy decides to continue being pathetic at his local playground, still looking like he's down in the funk. Luckily for him, his childhood friend, Yura, shows up and slaps down some sculpted rice cakes on the swing nearby, where she tells Jae-wook that she's had a bad day at work. After our boy confides in Yura that he's been having a tough day as well, she whips out her credit card to hand it to him, only for her to order him to buy 2 drinks on her so they could cheer up together. As such, Jae-wook gets up and finally becomes lively again, claiming that he can't say no to his super mama offering to pay for some lovely drinks. After buying some fresh banana milk, his sussy Becca tendencies come alive again, but he gets blocked near her basket as he realizes today is the first day she's seen her in pants. With him unable to check underneath the dragon plate legs, he stops sipping his drink for a moment as he's busy trying to battle his righteous conscience. Out of nowhere, he snaps back to reality after Yura randomly asks if he knows how to cook, so she blushes and asks if he wants her to cook for him sometime. He then just says sure, as this boy is as dense as a bag of Doritos, not realizing that Yura has been trying to send him some signals for the past couple years. Unfortunately for Yura, Jawook is too busy caring about destroying some rice cakes, using the powers of his mighty book when he could just straight up have it without needing any otherworldly powers. Regardless, the next day, he heads back home after school, still totally fixated on how he could get the legendary book to finally work. Upon arriving at the gate of his compound, he is greeted by a timely arrival of Unmi, so she even opens the door for him. But then he finally uses his brain again, so he allows the goddess to go first, as he noticed she's wearing her dragon plate skirt again, so his heart starts to beat relentlessly. Unfortunately, she outplays him without her even knowing. The kind-hearted lady tells Jawook to go up first since she went up first last time. He then sighs and continues on forward looking like a total simp, so he starts thinking about how today is another disastrous failure as his tree still contains his original cherries. However, Jawook wants to become a Sigma male, so he ends up turning around right before Yummy gets inside her house. He then rolls his dice and asks her if she could actually cook for him today, as she did promise she would cook for him anytime or any day he wants. As such, she agrees and begins preparing food for our boy, but Jawook has entered his enlightened phase in life, so he's able to use his brain to make a mega plan using a fan. Now, using what he learned during his science classes, he attempts to use his knowledge of physics to help him witness and learn more about biology. After correctly pinpointing and locating the most efficient area to place his fan on, Jawook proceeds to sit down and continues waiting for the right moment while taking religious classes so he can pray to the gods. Eventually, the dragon plate skirt flutters in the right direction, but Yummy is a masterclass tactician. As it turns out, the rice cakes are on full display due to her only equipping very tiny mini dragon plate skirts. Although our boy is able to see some glorious rice cakes in front of him, he realizes he needs to up the risk he's taking as this his one and only moment to shine to peak like Tom. Thus, he starts inching closer to her like a ninja, while cosplaying Spider-Man as he knows he needs to do a popping swing or else he's gonna get one tapped. Success. His plan works as he's able to finally discover the dragon string of Unmi, but she instantly turns around as she felt the cold air rise while feeling some weird hot air down below. It was at this very moment our boy knew he screwed up as he witnesses Unmi stare at him as if she's stuck in the JoJo universe. She then moves away from him, asking how he could do this to her, as this is an absolute betrayal of trust, exactly like when your jungler pings for a gank, but they went for blue buff instead. As such, she hurriedly attempts to leave his apartment after wanting to do a good deed for him by cooking Jawook a meal, so she starts insulting the Warriors fan by saying Lakers in 6 baity. Nonetheless, Jawook chases after her as he doesn't want to lose his only viable target within a few steps of his own front door, so he starts yelling for her to wait, while simultaneously showing what it looks like to be super desperate and lonely. Unfortunately, she slams his front door as hard as she could, so it gives her time to Naruto run down the flight of stairs connecting their apartments. It was at this very moment Jawook knew he screwed up real bad, so he tries his best to imitate his idol, Jimmy Neutron, to come up with a genius plan to still smash the Great Walls of Unmi. After brainstorming for literally 69 seconds, our boy realizes he followed the rules of the clap book to a T, as he was able to successfully Ferrari peek behind the dragon plate skirts of Unmi. So now all Jawook needs to do is write down what exactly he wants to happen to her, and it'll come true, just like in his most desired dreams. Shortly after finishing a very detailed paragraph detailing the sussy escapade he's about to go on with her, he turns around and sighs, hoping for the best as he's bringing back YOLO in 2023. To be honest though, big respects to our man Jawook, as he knows he can't live here anymore if his plan fails, as everyone will know about him being a supreme sussy baka. Nevertheless, he doesn't make a move after writing down her name in the paragraph. Instead, he starts panicking as he can't believe he trusted a book called the Clap Note given to him by a god calling himself Light Yagami. However, much to his surprise, he hears someone knocking on his door, so he better hope that ain't the Popo cuz behind bars. Some dark Yagamis will want to destroy his own rice cakes instead. As such, Jawook rushes to his door with absolute hope in his clap note that it'll bail him out and come through like the clutch king. And indeed it does, as Ihumi actually shows up again, but she's looking a bit more flustered than usual, where she also looks like she swapped out her wardrobe for some more appropriate stretchy clothing. She then looks down at her feet, explaining to Jawook that she never expected him to do such a thing. Afterwards, she starts looking him straight in the eyes exactly like a double-zoomed operator, where she tells Jawook that since they live literally right next to each other, then it's wise for them to talk about it like adults. Thus, Jawook finds himself sitting exactly where he was yesterday, But this time, he's the one looking like Tyler won after a losing streak, as Yumi wonders why Jae-wook would crawl on the floor to look for some dragon undies. However, with Jae-wook unable to answer her question, the turntable transforms into a sussy one, as Yumi begs the question if our boy finds her attractive. Now that was a massive bomb for Yumi to drop, causing our boy and myself to be caught in 4K, since we aren't even flying over Japan yet. Regardless, she continues on pestering him like some kind of preview of a cultured interview from another website, asking Jae-wook things like why would he even like someone as old as her. Of course, her age may be old, but it's plain as day to Jae-wook that everything else about her ain't looking like she passed her prime, but she's more like his prime numbers, causing Jae-wook to say nothing at all. Eventually, it dawns on Jae-wook that time is running out for him just like last time, so he needs to take action now, or else the clap note effects will wear off of Yumi, and she'll return back to reality. And so our newfound Chad takes the opportunity to compliment her like a true Sigma male, telling Yumi how she's more beautiful than anyone else he knows. He then stands up like a comedian and continues on an onslaught of unlimited confessions, where our boy even tells her that he can't even control the machine whenever he sees her, so it goes chub more than usual. He then takes a page out of the famous bald man's playbook and continues his advance by getting closer to her inch by inch, but that's not the only thing moving inch by inch. Anyways, his heartbeat begins to pound faster than ever in his life, due to his confidence in the clap note oozing more than my jello, so he figures it must be working if his target has not run away yet. Eventually, he advances the charge forward onto more sussy things, where he ends up propositioning the idea to do some rice cake destroying, but Yumi is totally down for the new mission. As such, our boy flashes his best Rizzy Yuk 9000 look he could muster, but Yumi is somehow not deterred at his look of awkwardness, so she actually allows for the entire ordeal to play out while busy thinking about her wedding day. Nevertheless, it's clear that although Yumi's team had a goalie in net, it didn't mean Jae-wook could not score an otherworldly from 40 yards out. Regardless, our boy stops drinking honey tea lemon with Yumi as he needs a second to take a quick break, as his soup is becoming more spicy than authentic Indian curry. But then it dawns on our boy that Yumi has been enjoying the entire movie. So now that Jae-wook is awestruck at the supposed power of the clap note actually working, he tells himself he needs to push on forward even further, as it's time for him to be the clap god. As such, he teleports himself to the entrance of the most dangerous zone within Minecraft, the Nether, as he wants to finally defeat his first ever Nether dragon. Success, as he's able to pickpocket the treasured dragon pyramids of Giza, while also fully unlocking the secrets behind the dragon plate skirt. So Timbaland starts singing It's Too Late to Apologize. Anyways, long story short, everything is going according to his master plan thanks to his idol Jimmy Neutron, so he's able to finally star in his own action movie with the co-star being Yumi, the legendary goddess. Now the crazy thing is that Jae-wook tells Yumi to turn around as he wants to play leapfrog with her, whilst he's busy incorporating a fully grown banana tree plantation within the game, but she actually wants to play along as well. Nevertheless, right before Jae-wook proceeds with a hole-in-one, his conscience acts up as he starts thinking about how this would change all the dynamics within the apartment complex. For a very long time, Yumi has always helped Jae-wook out whenever she could, so he returned the favor as she was the ultimate nice person around the block. But now that he has the perfect opportunity to help make her flowers grow with some water infused with milk, he realizes everything will change upon starting up his battering ram. Nonetheless, after snapping back to reality, his soy boy self gets pushed to the back of his mind as the only thing he can now think of is to make sure his two-handed sword gets its first combat experience on the battlefield in front of him. Now at this point, let's be real guys, our boy is no better than Jong-hoon, but he's basically worse now, all because he could not control his inner light Rizgami. Hopefully El shows up at some point to send our boy where he belongs, but it's probably too late for that, as he's now slowly becoming more corrupted by the day, all thanks to the Smash Note. Regardless, Jae-wook the Corrupted finally enters the final phase of the siege, so he starts breaching the walls of Yumi, while gaslighting her by claiming that it's her narrow walls that's the one pulling his siege weapons in. With the siege underway, the neighboring cities start to feel the earthquake aftershocks from the battlefield, so you can say the rest was incriminating history. So now let's skip to the part where Yumi gets up after the two finish their intense battle, where she ends up telling Jae-wook to make sure they keep it a secret between each other. Of course he agrees, so Yumi leaves the room without saying goodbye as she instead begged him to keep it a secret, as she claims she has no idea what the heck happened as her mind seemed lost in transition into the real world. Now that our corrupted boy has experienced his first ever successful mission using the clap note, he decides to whip out the book to study it even further to make himself stronger. Unfortunately, he learns the fact that after completing a mission by emptying a gallon of milk, all powers unleashed by the book from another world disappears and will no longer have any effects in an instant. As such, he flops onto his bed looking quite defeated, as it's further revealed that everyone involved within the mission will retain every single memory, so he realizes he's screwed since how could he ever look at her from now on. But instead of manning up, he starts blaming the smashed book instead of himself, showcasing his ability of still being a boy, as he claims that it was all the book's fault for putting him under a spell. And so he continues to facepalm while in the regret phase of his actions, but then he closes his jaw after realizing something. After hitting himself a couple more times, he gets jolted back up, and to his astonishment, he starts screaming out loud that the legendary mystical book actually works. So now the corrupted boy channels more of his sussy baka energy by grabbing and looking at the book like some kind of god, where he tells himself that if it works, it means he can literally target any one of his own wishes.